how to approach. That is very, very important. And I'm trying to do my level best. It is not possible to cover everything, but at the end of these 3 or 4 sessions, you should be able to approach the liver biopsy with love. Because during my training days for liver biopsy or kidney biopsy, whenever the biopsy comes, I go and hide because I don't know how to approach them. But after listening to this lecture, you should be very much looking for the next liver biopsy. I want to change my presentation slightly. They all put the references at the end. At the end, nobody is interested, and they push it in 1 or 2 minutes. So I thought I will give the references first. There is a beautiful book called Practical Hepatic Pathology. Okay, can you all see my arrow?
Yes, sir.
And this is written by Dr. Romil Saxena. She's a pathologist from Mumbai. I know her. She may not know me. Her husband is Anil Saxena. He is a breast pathologist. You have to know certain names so that when you meet them or when you meet them in the internet, it will be more familiar. And she did her MD pathology in Grand Medical College. During my training, we used to go to Grand Medical College for autopsy postings. I don't know whether Panikar sir has joined or not. I had some background noise. I request all of you to mute yourself. Okay, so Romil Saxena, her husband Anil Saxena is a breast pathologist. She's a very gem of a person, and she is the main editor for Practical Hepatic Pathology. Why I am putting this monogram? This is for the people who are practicing, to our alumni. For the exam going PGs or for our PGs, you stay with Sternberg. Sternberg gives very nicely about the liver pathology. And Sanjay Kakar and myself, we are in the same contemporary trainings at that time. In 1996, we all went to US. So now he is the fellowship director for liver pathology in San Francisco. There's another name, famous pathologist, liver pathologist, Linda Farrell. So Sanjay is lucky enough to go and work for Linda Farrell. And when you get a good mentor, you can be very, very successful in your life. So Sanjay followed Linda Farrell, and he is a very fine pathologist now. And the topmost one is Professor Peter Shire. He is a very good hepatopathologist in UK. And see the reference in number 5, virtualpathology.leeds.ac.uk. It has 10 audios or 10 videos of Peter Shire, how to approach the liver. Most of my ideas are from his talk. And as you remember, I took all the pictures from Google. So this, I thought these 3 people you should know: Peter Shire, Romil Saxena, and Sanjay Kakar. And 2 books you have to know: Practical Hepatic Pathology and Diagnostic Surgical Pathology. If you see Peter Shire in any of the meetings, that means you are in the wrong place, because he is no more in the world now. And if you see Romil Saxena and Sanjay Kakar in any of the meetings, they may be coming to India during that IAP meetings, okay, International Pathologists meeting. Just say, go hi to them, go and meet them and hi to them. With that introduction, I want to start the lecture. As usual, the game plan, it's mainly pattern analysis of hepatobiliary lesions. Before that, we have to know the histology of the hepatobiliary system. It's very, very important. Then we will end it up with a take-home message. References, we talked about it. At the end of the lecture, you should have a systematic approach to hepatobiliary lesions. I'm not checking the group WhatsApp. If somebody is waiting there, you please let me know. They may be messaging in the WhatsApp. Shalini, you check the group WhatsApp, Shalini, and let me know if anybody is waiting. I think Josephine is waiting.
Okay, sir.
So that I can allow them to come in. To interpret the liver biopsy, we need relevant clinical information. Without clinical information, the liver biopsy is just finding the pathological features. There is no final diagnosis without clinical information. In the clinical information, we have to know the age and sex, symptoms and duration. The main point you have to remember here is 6 months. If it is more than abnormal liver function test more than 6 months, then it will become chronic liver disease. Then coming to the biochemical test, you should be having hepatic pattern, cholestatic pattern or mixed pattern. I'm not going into details of biochemical testing. You all please refer Todd and Sanford. It's a very nice clinical pathology book. They talk about liver function tests. All the function tests, the exam going PG should be knowing, and please read from Todd and Sanford or Henry, whatever you call, both are the same. So when you see abnormal liver function test, you have to see whether it is a hepatic picture where hepatocytes are damaged, cholestatic picture where there is obstruction of the biliary epithelium, or a mixed pattern. Then coming to the molecular. The molecular one, it's very, very important, especially in metabolic diseases like hemochromatosis. They make the diagnosis now because of the particular molecular signature. Radiology is very, very essential. Now radiology is known as part of the gross examination. You all know diagnosis is made at the bench, gross in desk 70% of the time. So radiology is part of the grossing, and without referring to radiology, you should never diagnose, especially in mass lesions. And certain obstructive diseases, for example, primary sclerosing cholangitis, the radiological diagnosis. Then coming to indications of biopsy, why they have done the indications. So that is also very, very important. We will let us see step by step. The indications, it can be, is it for diagnosis, is it for prognosis, or is it for theranosis? For example, if it is hepatitis C, they give specific treatment. So why they are doing the biopsy, we have to know that. And the last thing, but not the least thing, is the medication history. Medication, I don't want to stress more than anything. Medication is very important for renal and liver disease. As you all know, all the medicines are metabolized in the liver and excreted by the kidney. So both liver and kidney disease, we have to get the medication history, because whatever changes we are going to see can be produced by any type of medicine. Starting from hepatitis, some medicine can give autoimmune hepatitis like picture. Some medicine can give hepatitis B like picture. So medication history is very, 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 very important, and you have to get it from the clinicians. So it's better to see the biopsy along with the clinicians. When the slides are ready, you first see without any history, because when you get some history, you will get biased. So do it without any, Kaushik is making some noise. Kaushik, don't make noise. So clinicians, before talking to clinicians, you have a look by yourself, form a differential diagnosis, then show the, know the clinical history and ask the clinician to come. It's better if you see the biopsy along with the hepatologist, so that you can serve better the hepatic diseased patients. So with the clinician, when you see, they will give the nice history and you can correlate. And as I am telling you again and again, without clinical history, it is only interpretation of the histopathological findings. It is not a final diagnosis. Coming to biopsies, biopsies can be done outpatient or inpatient. It can be for surgical disease or medical disease. The most of the lecture today we are going to cover only on the medical disease. So medical disease, we have to go for core biopsy. There is no point of doing FNAC in abnormal liver function test. We can't diagnose anything. FNAC is mainly for surgical disease, that you have to remember. Any liver biopsy, first you have to see, is it a medical or surgical, because your approach will be totally different. Surgically, a lesion can be FNAC, a lesion can be core biopsy, or they may take a wedge biopsy, or they may do a partial resection, or they can do a hepatectomy followed by transplant. So these are all the types of liver tissues we may be seeing, mainly inpatient, outpatient. Core biopsy and FNAC can be done as an outpatient ambulatory procedure, and surgical and medical liver disease. These three things I already talked about the indications. Just we will go through quickly, and you have to know what are the contraindications and complications also of the biopsy. The indications are mainly abnormal liver function test or mass lesions. In the abnormal liver function test, many times they do biopsy for primary diagnosis. For example, they don't know what is happening, unknown cause. Can it be NASH? Can it be alcoholic liver disease? Can it be hepatitis B? They don't know. So for primary diagnosis, they may be doing the biopsy, or for suspected causes. They might have done serology, the liver kidney microsome antibody may be positive. So they are suspecting autoimmune hepatitis. So they are doing the biopsy. And the last one, they may have already serological diagnosis, but the patient may not be responding to the treatment. So they may think there may be some other disease, more than one disease. For example, HCV and non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. So it may be for primary diagnosis or for additional information. Serologically, the patient, they proved it is hepatitis C, but they want to know what is the grade and stage. I want to stress grade is activity, stage is fibrosis. The clue I remember is stage has to be very strong, then only you can dance on the stage. So it should be fibrosis. Whatever we talk in the liver, grade indicates severity of the inflammation, stage indicates fibrosis. And then additional information, they may already have the history of HCV or non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. They want to know how much the patient responded to treatment. That's why they may be doing the biopsies. These two things you have to be very clear. Is it for primary diagnosis or is it for additional information? Coming to contraindications, uncooperative patients, ascites, bleeding disorders, vascular lesions, and hydatid cyst. Hydatid cyst, I don't know. In the books, they are giving it is contraindication, but practically some people are aspirating the hydatid cyst. Some of the articles are saying it can be safely biopsied, but I leave it to you. But those are all the contraindications. In case of bleeding disorders, another way, usually they do go through the skin to take the liver biopsy. But in case of bleeding disorder, they may go through the jugular vein, they may go through the IVC, hepatic vein, and then go into the liver and they take the biopsy. Transjugular hepatic biopsies can be taken in case of bleeding disorders. In the exams, they may ask, bleeding disorder is there, but you want to take the biopsy. What is the other methods available? Please remember transjugular hepatic biopsy. Coming to complications, can be pain, always give paracetamol in their hand. Bleeding, it can be either intrahepatic peritoneal or communication with the biliary tree producing hemophilia. Sometimes in severe cholestatic jaundice, biliary peritonitis can come. It can get secondarily infected and the bacteremia and sepsis may be there. These are all the complications. Is everything clear so far? Just say yes. So,
Yes, sir.
good. Now we are going to hepatocyte histology. As you all know, just 1 minute. Because iPad. Histology, understanding histology is very essential. As you all know, it is either hexagonal or pentagonal plate, and they have at the corners of the plate, they have the portal triad. Why it is called as triad? Because of the portal vein, hepatic artery, and the bile duct. And the cells are arranged as single cords towards the central vein. So it is like a coffee percolator where the good blood starts from the portal tract, goes towards the central vein, and on the way they give nutrients to hepatocytes, take the unwanted things from the hepatocytes, and they leave it in the central vein. Why you have to know this flow is to know which area is highly nutrient. The area close to the portal tract is highly nutrient, and the area close to the central vein is poorly perfused or poorly nourished. And that's why any necrotic lesion first happens, or any ischemic lesion first happens in very central vein area, which is known as zone 3. So the liver is divided into 3 zones. Zone 1 is highly nutrient area, zone 3 is poorly nourished area, and zone 2 is in between. Why you have to know that? Again, zone 3 is the first area affected in the liver. It's like proximal tubules in the kidney. Before going to further histology, you know I love drawing the histology or anything like a cartoon. So I tried my bit of drawing the hepatocytes. I'm trying to drawing hepatocytes. You may not know or understand what I'm doing now. It looks like a rangoli. But if you keep watching, you will be able to see I'm leaving some spaces in the middle of the hepatocytes. So there are 4 hepatocytes, and those spaces are the canaliculi. You have to always remember to draw the canaliculi. And I'm drawing some bile there. And there is a lot of space here. This I just put it to introduce the concept for you. So don't forget to draw canaliculi in the normal histology. These are sinusoids where RBCs are going, and as you know, the sinusoids are lined by endothelial cells. We will put nucleus for these endothelial cells in a minute. And if you see, I'm leaving some space here, which I am filling it up with the color now. And this is known as space of disease. Why it is important? Certain people are living there, like stellate cells, and certain diseases affects. For example, how many of you know amyloidosis happens in the space of disease? You all know amyloidosis is a extracellular protein deposition. So it happens in space of disease, and these stellate cells are responsible for vitamin A metabolism. So let us now label these cells. This is a hepatocyte. This is a biliary canaliculi, space of disease with the cells of Ito. Okay, this is the Ito cells, and this endothelial cell, sinusoids, and these are the Kupffer cells living in the sinusoids. This basic understanding is very, very important. All of you should be able to write this or draw this very clearly. This concept is very important, because in cases of hepatocellular carcinoma, this pattern is reformed. Okay, that's why hepatocytes are forming bile, and that's a famous question. Remember, I used to ask, bile is produced in cholangiocarcinoma or hepatocellular carcinoma? Logically, it should be biliary carcinoma, but in real life, it is hepatocellular carcinoma. Biliary carcinoma produces mucin, whereas hepatocellular carcinoma produces bile. And in HCC, the sinusoidal pattern is preserved. These endothelial cells are also formed. That's why some people do the CD34 as a marker for hepatocellular carcinoma. When the marker is positive, then it is hepatocellular carcinoma. And as I told you, the space of disease is very important because of amyloidosis. And the Ito cells, they are responsible for development of cirrhosis also. Okay, they are these. Remember, there are no fibroblasts. How the fibrosis is produced in liver in cirrhosis? It is because of the Ito cells that are living in the space of disease. So there are 2 roles for Ito cells. One is vitamin A metabolism. Second one is cirrhosis or fibrosis. And some people think there are some stem cells also living in the space of disease. It's not 100% proved, but conceptually some stem cells are also there. And don't forget about the biliary canaliculi. And another important point, this biliary canaliculi is positive for polyclonal EMA. That's why they do polyclonal EMA as a marker for immunohistochemistry for hepatocellular carcinoma, and it has to show the canalicular positivity. It is not a membranous positivity, but only the canaliculi. And remember, these areas, I have not drawn very flat line. These are also ruffled because these are all microvilli. Okay, and this another sinusoid is coming there. Another sinusoid will be coming this side. So this is the lateral margin and this is the sinusoidal surface of the hepatocytes. Is the histology clear for all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Super. Now let us go to the textbook picture. In the textbook, it's not clearly given like the way I explained. That's why I tried my level best. And there is an app called Show Me in iPad. That Show Me will allow you to draw and record it, and you can put it in your PowerPoint or Keynote. So when you see it's a portal triad, this is the portal vein, bile duct, and hepatic artery. And all these three goes into circulation. That you have to remember. And pathology is a beautiful subject, and where we have to imagine all the three-dimensional things we are seeing in the two-dimensional way. Okay, so don't try to stress too much on the three-dimensionality. Just accept it. It's a two-dimensionally we are trying to understand what is happening in a three-dimensional structure. So hepatic artery and portal vein, they go into the sinus tract, and the biliary epithelium, canaliculi is formed, and that goes into the bile duct. See the direction of the flow. Hepatic artery and portal vein, they go towards the central vein, whereas the bile duct, canaliculi comes towards the portal tract. So it's a opposite direction that you have to remember. And this picture tells you the way which I have drawn that. So the microvilli surface, see the stem cells, or this is the space of disease with the stem cell and cells of Ito. These are the sinusoids and these are the Kupffer cells. After that cartoon, this should be very, very easy for you to understand. What disease comes in space of disease, Anelia?
Amyloidosis.
Great. So this is the picture just to show the biliary system. Okay, these are all the hepatocytes. And this is the canaliculus. And canaliculus goes into canal of Herring. Then canal of Herring goes into biliary ductules. That becomes bile duct, interlobular, interseptal, septal, segmental. Then it becomes hepatic duct, right hepatic duct and left hepatic duct. That becomes the common hepatic duct. And when the bile duct, the cystic duct from the gallbladder joins the common hepatic duct, it forms the common bile duct. So this is the anatomy: common bile duct, cystic duct, hepatic duct, main hepatic duct, right and left hepatic duct. And these are all the other forms. Why we have to know this? Because certain diseases are affecting major biliary system and certain diseases are affecting minor biliary system. The best example is primary sclerosing cholangitis. It affects predominantly major as well as minor. Whereas autoimmune cholangitis, it affects the mainly minor. And primary biliary cirrhosis, there's a name change there. Primary biliary cirrhosis is now known as primary biliary cholangitis. PBC is same. C, instead of cirrhosis, it has become cholangitis. There, these small ductules are more affected. That we have to understand. So this is the pattern. Canaliculi, canal of Herring, bile ductules, bile duct, interseptal, septal, segmental, hepatic, and major. And this canal of Herring and biliary epithelium, they will be positive for CK7. And as I mentioned, polyclonal CEA will have canalicular pattern in addition to the CD10. CD10 also positive for canalicular pattern. So let us see the histology picture. Here this is a portal vein area, portal triad area. You can see the some amount of fibrous tissue in the portal tract, and you can see the two bile ducts are there and a hepatic artery. Why there are two bile ducts? Because these bile ducts are running like a serpentine, and when you cut, you may cut two levels of the same bile duct. But here you have to remember the bile duct and the hepatic artery will be of same diameter. That is very, very important. And portal vein is not seen clearly in this area. Probably this one, I'm not sure. portal vein is not seen clearly in this area. But why I put this picture, this is the best one I got from Google that shows the same diameter of the bile duct and the hepatic artery. That is very, very important. This is the central vein area. Central vein area is lined by sinusoids that are coming very close approximation with the hepatocytes. Here you can see the cords of hepatocytes, 1 cell thick with sinusoids on both sides of the hepatocytes. In pediatrics, it is not very well formed, especially in neonates. And you can see the extramedullary hematopoiesis in the sinusoids. That you have to keep it in mind. You should not be thinking of any blasts in neonatal liver biopsy when it is happening in the sinusoids. It is immature. And in the elderly people, it is the other way. We see the aging pigment, which is a lipochrome pigment in the cytoplasm of the hepatocytes, and they will be PASD positive in the lipochrome pigments or aging pigments. So that's about normal. Now we are going how to approach the hepatobiliary lesion.